Welcome to the Weaver Sews. I'm Daryl Lancaster. When I learned to sew, way back in the 1960s, you purchased your pattern by size, and each pattern envelope contained one size. If you were a combination of sizes, as most people are, you were completely out of luck, or had to purchase multiple sizes and piece them together. Sometime in the 1970s, multi-size patterns became available. Initially, there was a lot of pushback, and as recently as just a couple of years ago, someone wrote into a major sewing publication, returning to sewing after decades away, and was appalled at the confusion of a multi-size pattern, wishing for the days when one pattern size was in the envelope. Actually, one of the smartest innovations the pattern companies did, though I'm sure it was a cost-saving measure, was to create multi-size patterns. Typically, the different sizes are shown with a varied printed line, some kind of dash and dot combination, and though following a specific size line can be confusing, tracing a size with a highlighter or a marker makes the size you want more clear. The grading schematic, which I call this grid of multi-sizes, is really important information, and for me, really important for me to keep. With the advent of digital patterns, printing the pattern on regular paper and taping the pages together, like I have here, makes cutting out the pattern on one size line and discarding the rest one option, because the entire grading schematic is preserved in the digital form. You would just have to print the pattern over again to get a different size. But I'm big on preserving the entire size range, or grading schematic, and tracing off what I need onto a pattern tracing medium. I did a whole video on this. I use this technique for not only my patterns, but any commercial or independent pattern, whether it's printed on tissue, available as a download, or featured in a magazine like Berta Style. What I want to talk about today is the actual grading schematic and the important information contained in it, and how to use it to customize patterns to your advantage. When a body expands, as in gains weight, that expansion happens in specific areas. If I took all of you, dear viewers, and lined you up across the globe and took a measurement of your shoulders across your back, you would find little difference between the sizes. The industry grading standard for expansion and contraction of a pattern in the shoulder area is only 1/8 inch or 3 millimeters from neck to armhole per size. Compare that to the waist circumference. 1/8 inch or 3 millimeter plus 1/4 inch or 6 millimeter equals 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter. Multiply that by 4, since this is actually a circumference measurement, and what we just calculated was only half of the front, you will end up with 1.5 inches or 3.8 centimeter change per size. And that translates to the hip as well. I don't completely follow the industry grading standard. I have a little more room between my sizing, which gives the ability to trace a half size and get a better, more finely tuned fit. But understanding how bodies expand and contract makes it easier to understand how patterns expand and contract, and select the size that works for your area of the body. For example, you might be one size in the shoulder width, a different size in the sleeve and armhole, and you might be yet another size across the bust and a completely different size across the hip. Most importantly, though, is what happens if your size isn't available in the grading schematic of that particular pattern. I once had the great good fortune to costume a high school production of Little Shop of Horrors. There was a group of 3 street urchins that kept the storyline moving forward with their chorus of catchy songs and rhythmic harmonies. Because this was a high school production, the chorus girls were expanded from 3 to 6 students to include more participants. So I sketched out the designs for a number of costume changes, including a sequined dress for a jazzy finale, and found a commercial pattern that would give me the right components with minor alterations. However, the range of sizes in the 6 girls that I was going to be fitting was considerable. And at least one of the girls was 2 sizes smaller than the smallest size in the multi-size pattern, and at least one of the girls was 2 sizes larger than the largest size in the pattern range. Since I had the grading schematic in front of me in this multi-size pattern, it was easy to just keep grading up and down until I reached the full size range for my group of high school students. So by following the grading schematic in any pattern, it's easy to grade up or down to increase or decrease the size or specific areas like the hip to be whatever you need. Having a little seam gauge with a sliding marker can help. And though this step can be a bit tedious, it's a wonderful skill to have and employ to get the size you want. So let's look at my 200 jacket back. My 200 pattern goes up to a size purple, and the smallest size is a brown. And yes, I use colors instead of numbers, less confusion. I just did a couple of videos that talked about how to find your size using the finished garment measurements listed in the pattern support materials. It's not uncommon to want more. And occasionally in classes where I am teaching and working directly with a group of students, I will have someone who needs a size that isn't there. We saw that in the video with my daughter. She needed a bigger size in the 200 jacket than I had drafted. So we switched to the 100 jacket, which by design gave her more room and more options. So let's grade up one size from my 200 jacket's largest size purple using the pattern back. Remember, what you do for one part of the pattern has to be duplicated for any other part of the pattern that will connect to it. So you would grade up for all of the pattern pieces. Always make a test garment first to make sure that everything fits together and fits you. First, with a pencil and my trusty seam gauge, I'll measure the distance between each size and mark that to create one size larger. I could even divide that distance in half and grade up a half size. I could even go the other direction and create a size even smaller than a brown. And I've had to do that in a couple of classes as well. Once I have all the pencil marks and am satisfied, I can join all the little marks with a pen, a marker, a highlighter, or colored pencil to indicate my new personal size. For areas like these waist darts, you can keep the darts indicated by the largest size, create a new dart line for your new size, eliminate them altogether to give some additional room, whatever suits your body and your needs. Understanding how flat patterns work is a science and a language that most people who sew aren't taught. Learning your body and how it relates to the flat pattern can be a challenging but ultimately really rewarding skill set. I'm Daryl Lancaster for The Weaver Sews.